Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. Today's demonstration of this giraffe is all about using the wet in wet technique to keep a painting both fluid and fresh. I've also used simple washes and the white of the paper to create contrast. The paper I'm using is Saunders Waterford 300g rough, and I'm working on dry paper. I'm also keeping the palette simple, using just a few colours. I'm starting with the ears, using Imperial Purple and Ultramarine in different strengths to create the shadows and the insides of the ears. I'm blending the different shades together and mixing stronger areas for the depths of the ears, and then I'm adding a touch of yellow ochre, just wet in wet, just to feather and blend outwards. And these brushes are brilliant. You can squeeze the ends to create this feathering effect for hairs on the ears. This is an Acacia Shiraku synthetic calligraphy brush, and they're really lovely brushes. You can get a really nice point. They hold a fair amount of paint and are very versatile. For the background, keeping it very loose. This is going to dry much lighter, but I wanted to have a little bit of colour to have a bit of contrast with the ears. Not too much, just enough. As I say, it will dry much lighter and won't interfere with the layout of the painting. This is more yellow ochre for the ears. Again, working wet in wet, not worrying too much about colours mixing together. And I'm using yellow ochre for the initial underpainting on the head of the giraffe too. Again, working on dry paper, I'm going to add more colour into this wet in wet, so there are no really hard defined lines. Just dropping in a little bit of burnt sienna, just building up the different shades. Working from light to dark, getting darker as I go. This is burnt sienna and ultramarine mixed together to create this warm dark grey. Just making it a little bit darker for the horns. Not too worried about any bleeding into the background. That will dry fairly light, so it's not a big issue. Trying to keep this painting fairly loose. Obviously I want it to look like a giraffe, but I'm not being too fussy about edges. Again, just putting some background in using the mixture of purple and ultramarine. For the shadow on on this ear, I've just used a bluer mix grey with ultramarine and burnt sienna. For the pattern on the giraffe's neck, this is pretty much neat burnt sienna with a touch of yellow ochre. And using the white of the paper for the gaps in between the pattern on the neck. Now that the head is pretty dry, I can add these darker tones. Again, using a fairly strong mix of ultramarine and burnt sienna for a very deep bluey grey for the horns, and the side of the head just above the eye that's in the shade, or in shadow I should say. Again, using the same mix to darken that shadow area in the ears. Just using a little bit of yellow ochre just to define the shape of the neck a little bit, with a little bit of shading underneath the neck. And on the mane, at the top of the neck, this is burnt sienna. As you can see, I've flattened the brush to get that hair effect of hair standing up. And I'll do the same again with the darker mix, fairly dry mix of burnt sienna, just to create the illusion of hairs. For the eyes, I've just used a little bit of neutral tint with the grey mix that I already mixed up of ultramarine and burnt sienna, just to darken it for the eyes. It just brings the painting alive, that contrast, and the nostril obviously. Just using a little bit of white gouache just to tidy up some of the edges where I've let the paint bleed a little bit too much. Nothing too specific. The trick is not to go over the top with white gouache. Just to help define the shapes a little bit better. And I think I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Do give it a like if you think so. Do subscribe and hit the notification bell for future videos, and thanks again for watching.